If you say certain things with a certain kind of pronunciation, it gets, or it incites a certain kind of emotion within the kids. And even how they're going to respond to what you say will be different compared to someone else saying the same thing, but with more expression and great enunciation. So you need to practice that. Say things slower, but of course not too slow, that you become boring, and try to pump in some expressions when you're saying what you are saying. Endeavor to pronounce the words the way they are made to be pronounced. If a certain letter is silent, make sure it's silent. O-F-T-E-N is not often, it's often. The T is silent. But there's some people that say, now often I find myself, because there could be another similar word that sounds like often if you say often instead of often. And then you behave wrongly, but that's not what you meant to say. So make sure you pronounce the words the way they are meant to be pronounced. If you have a dictionary in your phone, there's an audio sign on the side of the word, and when you click there, they actually sort of try to show you how the word sounds when it is pronounced correctly. But more than that, below the word, they'll put how the word should be pronounced. The spelling might not look as the same as the word, but they will write the word how it should be pronounced. Why do they do that? Because the way you pronounce the words affect how the words are heard. So it's very critical. So look at those things. You'll be surprised. Why would they go? And I mean, there are not many people that look at how the words are pronounced, even when they go to the dictionary. And they think maybe it doesn't even matter. Or maybe it only matters in Europe. But maybe that's the very reason why most of our leaders, when they go to Europe and they are met with people that communicate well, we end up signing deals that we don't even understand. And when we come back here, we'll be like, and whatever we say here is very confidential, and I'm using these as examples. When we come back here, we'll be like, but how did we say Mopani at 50 versus, 51 versus 49%? Like, how come like this thing wasn't even talked about? It's because many times, more often than not, the way someone speaks has a similar correlation with how they read the words if they are written on a paper. If in your speaking you say often, even when you see it written on paper, you read it as often. And if you are not critical enough, even when you are reading, you miss certain maybe connotation that would mean something different because you're not critical even when you are speaking, that you don't mind it. And as a result, we find ourselves in many problems. And I ask myself, how do we sometimes sign like a 99-year lease? I mean, who would even be here? The people that will be here will not even know what happened. But we sign those. How do we even sign, certain agreements? Like how come that happens? Of course, there's a lot of other sophisticated processes that go on in terms of, there's corruption, there's all those things that happen. But sometimes it's merely looking at what has been written and what has been said. And that affects how we are heard. Number 4, I think you might not even have thought about this, but your ears play a key role when you're communicating. Here's an example. Let's say you're talking to your colleague. Good morning, how are you? How was your night yesterday? How are the kids and whatnot? And you notice she's not even responding as she always does. An effective communicator will not continue to ask, so tell me, how did you get home yesterday? Like, if you're attentive enough, you'll be able to tell my friend is not okay. You stop on that line of questioning or on that line of communication so that you can find out what is wrong with your friend. But there's some people that will never tell there's something going on with their friend. They will keep talking, and then later on and say, you're not even paying attention. But it's you who's not paying attention. Because if you were listening, the tone of the voice, how the mood of your friend, you tell that my friend is not fine. For example, you're the husband, you've been promoted at work today, and you've just gotten a big raise. And you go home, you want to tell that to your wife. Maybe your wife, let's say she's not working. But maybe she's had a very difficult day with the kids at home. You go to, you just drop the bag or the suit that you're wearing, like, something great has happened. Let me tell you, but like, you're not really paying attention to what is going on. And you start talking about how you are promoted, you are all this happened and whatnot and whatnot. And then she just says, oh, okay, that's good for you. And then you vex. You say, no, you don't support me. But it's you were not paying attention to notice that she's not her usual self today. What's going on? Before I break my good news, let me find out what's going on. Pay attention. Sometimes you could be speaking to a client and you've noticed that this conversation is not going as I expected. If you keep going on, talking about this is the benefits of what we do, we are the best in this business and whatnot and whatnot and whatnot and whatnot. So are you willing to onboard us as your solution for this particular business? And then they just say, can we have this conversation next week? I mean, you'd be disappointed that after all this that I have said, and your response is, can we have this conversation next week? I mean, that's painful, right? Yeah. But if you are attentive enough, maybe along the way you could have said, oh, maybe let's do this. I can give you some more time to think about this. I can come back next week. And then maybe that's perfect, because I mean, maybe they will even open up, because there's quite a lot going on right now, so can we have this next week? It's because you were listening. So speaking is not just verbalizing. Communicating involves active listening. And you may not be listening to the words the person is saying, but you are also listening to the mood. You are listening to the tone of the words that are being said. And from there, you edit the speech. Even if you had planned to say this, and you notice this mood is different, you want to break it down, you end up saying this. But without discrediting what you wanted to say. Or you can put the conversation for another day, so that all of you are in a good space. So listening separates between great communicators and average communicators. I have gone to an event before. I'll give you a typical example. I was going to an event, I was scheduled to speak, I was prepared, I was ready, and I was looking forward to speaking at this particular event. But the people that were hosting us, on the day of the event, in the morning, the event was scheduled to start at 8:30. At about 8 hours, the host lost his father. Now, this was someone who was very close. Like, a lot of people in that event knew the person. I was already ready. In fact, we were already in the holding room when the host received the news. People were already seated. It was just a few minutes before they told us, okay, now we can go to the stage, and sit in front and let the MC do his thing. So everyone was already seated. He couldn't cancel the event at that time. He told us, oh, this has just happened. But for the sake of the event, let me just sort of hang around, and then quickly after the event, I'll go. And then when the MC was told, so he went and told the audience, this has happened. And I was the first speaker. When I stood to speak, I could tell the mood was distorted. But I was prepared. I had put some humorous statements to make there to make people laugh. But the mood had changed. Now, here's something that I did, which the people that were following me did not do. Maybe because they were not listening when I was talking. So I stood up. I had even prepared to tell a very funny story, but I changed the story. When I stood up, of course, we had known what had happened, and I could see, because we were seated in front, we could see what was going on. People were even discussing the death. Others were even suspecting. Could it be that you had something? I didn't know how people. And sometimes when you're in an event, you see people showing each other on their phone. It's the same one. And there are others that didn't know him facially, but they knew the name and whatnot, so you could find that people are showing. And it could be bad of me and disrespectful to stand and say, can you put your phones away? We want to talk about something very critical. So what I did, I stood and I went to the stage. And I paused for 5 seconds. I was just quiet. I stood on the stage. And then I asked the question, how many of us would want to live forever? People raised their hands. And of course, there's some people that didn't raise their hands. And then I said, wow, you wouldn't want to live forever? And then sort of people laughed. And then I said, if you knew you could live forever, wouldn't you try bungee jumping? Because you know nothing would happen to you. Again, people laughed. But then I said, but then again, if we lived forever, would we have the agency to do the things that we do now, knowing that any day could be our last day? That sent some silence in the room. And then I explained how that, in as much as we may want to live forever, maybe sometimes it's good to live for only 30 years. Because that gives us the urge to work hard towards a certain end, knowing that we don't have forever. And I would encourage you to make sure that you are counting your days, like number your days, so that you don't get to the end of your days or your end of your life and realize you didn't love enough, and realize you didn't apply yourself enough, and realize you didn't care enough, and realize you didn't love enough. And then I went into my speech. That speech turned out to be the best speech that I've ever given. And the people that came after me, they were not paying attention because they were thinking because people were laughing, then people had forgotten what happened. No, it's because of how I engaged the audience, because I listened to their mood and I edited my delivery. The second person that came now, the mood was still the same. So after I left the stage, the mood still remained the same. But after I left the stage, the next person came and he was talking about how, like, he was trying to crack funny jokes and people were not laughing. And then he was talking about how that, you know, he's accomplished, he has degrees, he has masters, he was a doctor, he had just gotten his PhD from MIT and whatnot, and people were not moved. And now he was honest enough to ask me after the event, and the sad thing is he was not Zambian. So he was thinking the people were laughing because I was a Zambian who was speaking. But of course there were other two speakers that were also Zambians that didn't get the same reaction that I got. But I told him what I'm telling you now. A great communicator listens to the mood of the people he's talking to, and he changes the delivery to match that mood, and then raises it without going beyond what is within that particular mood. And to date, whenever he goes to give a speech anywhere, he reaches out to ask how best he could deliver the speech given the audience. So listen to the mood of the audience. Listen to the mood of the audience. If you're trying to talk, for example, the way you talk to your 15-year-old boy and the 10-year-old boy are two different things. The difference is not in the information, but in how you relay the information. Why? Because you may want to, like, you may notice that the 15 boy now knows there's a lot of stuff on TikTok. He's seen this, he has friends that have discussed this, and that with him. And the 10-year-old boy may not really have been exposed much to this information. When you listen to that situation, you want to deliver the same information, but you try to use different tricks so that the same information get to two people. So listen to the mood. And of course, the fifth thing are your hands. Your hands. Now, hands play a key role when you're talking. Because imagine if you're talking and your hands are like this. This shows that you are nervous. And you're trying to get a hold so that you don't, like, your hands don't show that they are shaking. So when you do this, I mean, you can't shake the whole, like, two hands. Like, that would be too much nervousness. But if you let them alone, and some people you can tell when they're speaking, you can tell, like, you can see their hands are shaking and they're trying hard. Sometimes when they realize they'll drop them or they'll try to do something. So in communication, if you can't keep an open palm, keep what we call an Anglo-Marco pause, this. You may have seen many people do this when they're talking. This is not by accident. This is a pause. So that you don't rest your hands like this, or you put them in the pocket, or hold them, behind you, or, try to hold them in front of you. So you can put an Anglo-Marco pause, like you're talking and you have your hands like this, or you have your hands like this, or you can drop them once in a while, and then again continue to gesture. But you can also rest them like this. Don't rest them like this, or like this, where you're like, yeah, so that's how pretty much what we can do as a company, and we are very confident. You can't be confident with your hands behind your back. It's like when people say, if a blind man says, I will beat you, definitely he's stepping on a stone. Because you just need to bend and get the stone. So if you're saying you're confident and you're like this sounds almost like cheeky. Or like, oh, so you think we don't know what confidence looks like? But if you say, I'm very confident, we'll be able to deliver to your expectations. Just doing this, it changes the whole environment. So we've talked about the hand gestures, obviously, we talked about this yesterday. But just to re-emphasize, do not rest your hands like this or like this. The best you can do is the Anglo-Marco. Or like this, or you drop them straight. Once in a while, again you bring it up. But there's some people when they're talking, you find they'll be doing this, or they'll be doing this, you know. Others will be doing like they're applying some lotion, but they're talking. They're just trying to sort of like scare away the names. This already shows that you're not being honest, but you're being truthful. But the signal that it is sending is that you're not being honest. And more than anything, life is about perception. It doesn't matter how genuine you are, but if I perceive that you are not, I'll take my perception and run with it. And many people have ended up badly because of how they were perceived. In fact, there was a man recently in the United States, I don't know if that case is still ongoing, who was on the death row because of how he looked. Even when people pleaded, this guy is innocent. But that's the way he looked like. This guy looks like he's the one who did it. Just the looks. That's why when, like for example, it's not every organization, maybe only those that are in IT. But if you are client-facing, I'm yet to find that organization that is client-facing and they will have the guys in sales with tattoos, you know, dreadlocks. You can wear your vest and you go and meet clients. I mean, you are good at what you do. You are the best in terms of sales. But you can't be allowed to do that. Why? It's the perception. When you walk into the room, people start judging you before you say whatever it is that you want to say. So you remember that thing that you said, never judge the book by its cover? That thing is not true. We judge the book by its cover. We look at the cover and we're like, this book is not nice. Even if the book is nice. I mean, I'm an author, I've published 5 books. And one of the things that you do when you write a book, you want to make sure the cover itself will draw someone to come and pick the book and then maybe start going through before they can ultimately buy. But if the cover itself cannot even draw the person to pick the book, then you haven't done much justice. And only those authors that are widely known are authors that can afford to put any cover. And why can they afford to put any cover? Because they are already known themselves. They are the cover. So, for example, if I write a book on public speaking, those people that have heard me speak, whether they have read the book or not, they'll buy the book. Because we know the guy, he can speak. But if I write the book on leadership or relationships, if you've never heard me talk about relationships, you may not buy the book. But if the cover is nice, you even try to find out about who the author is later on. So perception matters. People judge you. And there's a research that was done by Harvard University. They concluded that between when people see you and when they judge you, it takes about 3 seconds. Like if you walk into the room, within 3 seconds, people would have already made conclusions about you. Everywhere, in Zambia and outside Zambia. You walk into a meeting with a client, the first few seconds, 3 seconds, the client has already made a conclusion. Based on how you are walking, based on how you are carrying yourself, based on how you are dressed, everything that you have on yourself already communicates this guy is the one or he's not the one. And many of us neglect all that and say, no, as long as I know what I do, I know my job, I can deliver. I mean, we are not doubting that you can't deliver. But the perception you are giving us, even if we know you can deliver, we doubt your delivery. Because we have judged you. And hand gestures when you are talking create that judgment. To either to favor you or not. If you are talking and you are doing this, even if what you are saying is critical, important, and it's factual, the one who's seated on the other side is making judgment based on how you are moving your hands. Or how you are moving your legs. And that you're seated, but then you are fidgeting. The people you're talking to begin to make judgment. Or you are seated and then like you lean over on the chair and you're talking to your clients. They already make judgment based on how you are seated. In primary school, they used to tell us, sit like Jumbo, sit like Leo. Those were not just like by the way things. Those are critical things. If you check how world leaders sit, they don't sit all the way to the full of the chair. No. They sit somewhere like close, like in front of a chair, if I may. They leave the other space as they are talking. Even if they're sitting on a sofa, they'll try to sit on the edge. And when they are talking, their hands will be like on their, they'll rest on their legs if there's no table. And they are talking. That thing is not accident. That thing is critical. Or when you are walking and someone opens the door for you. In world politics, that doesn't mean you're special. It means you are inferior. So someone will open the door and then when you're walking, then they like on your back. No, after you, sir. You, maybe you might look at it like, I'm special. He's opening doors for me. But in world politics, that shows that the one who's opening the door is more powerful than the one who's been opened for. So all those things are judgments. If you check, I think there's at some point some news highlights about when Trump went to Russia or something, and then Putin was opening the door for him. I think it must have been that. There was, like global, historians and whatnot. They were discussing how that Putin was displaying his power by opening the door. I mean, one would think that opening the door is like you open doors for important people, but no. If an important person opens the door for you, it means you are the one who's less important. So all those are perceptions, and people run with them. Even when, for example, the CEO invites someone here, before the CEO sits, like, yeah, take your seat. The person sits. That offer might sound like, why is he allowing the person to sit first before he sits? That's a demonstration of power. And these things happen a lot. And that's the reason why, if you walk into someone's office, you do not take a seat before they tell you to sit. If you do, then the person is perceiving you as you are disrespecting. Because this is not your office. Why are you sitting before I tell you to sit? But at your house, if you walk into the house, you can even jump and lie on your chair. It's your chair, it's your house. But if another visitor comes and does that, even if it's your young sister, your young brother, you have a problem with you. It's perceptions and how that they demonstrate. You are the one who gives permission, or you can, even when you are walking out, like you're walking someone out. If they open your door, like you are walking them out of your house, and then they're the ones who open the door, you'll be like, what's going on here? Why so much confidence? But you open the door for them and you usher them out. So those are very critical elements when you're talking about perception. And the last thing, or the last two things is your back and your legs. I think we tried to highlight this yesterday when we were talking about how perception can be when either you are seated and you are like leaning towards like forward, or when you are sort of like leaning backwards, and versus when you try to stand confidently. So based on the position of your back, that can influence how much confidence that you are showing to the people that you are talking to. Imagine if you are standing and then sort of like you bend towards your left hand. That communicates lack of self-esteem. That you have low self-esteem. That's if you have any esteem at all. But when you stand up like confidently, even if down inside your heart is racing and the heart is beating so fast, we will not be able to tell, but just based on how you are standing, people begin to give you a certain perception and they run with that. So make sure if you're seated or you're standing, make sure your back is straight. You're not leaning forward, you are not leaning backward, but you are seated up straight to convince or to convey the message in a convincing manner. And when it comes to your leg, or your legs rather, crossing your legs when you're speaking does not show that you are cool. It shows you are prideful, you are boastful, and you are disrespectful. But that's not what you actually say, but just this gesture just shows that this is something casual. You can do this when you're talking to your friend. But imagine you're talking to leaders. Even when, for example, you go to a meeting with a client, and then you are crossing your legs in this manner. It's a different conversation versus when you cross your leg, it goes on top of the other thigh. That's another posture. That's a different conversation that it conveys. It conveys power, it conveys comfort. But if you're the one in the person's office or you are the one in people's conference rooms, you can't do that. Why? You'll be perceived otherwise. You'll be perceived like you are comfortable. This is not your house. So make sure that you do not cross your legs or sway your legs, or when you're talking, you know the people that long time ago, because phones were very delicate then. In fact, I think there was a point when a phone, like you could have a SIM card and not a phone. You tell your friends, I am on SIM. Now those days, if you like a good girl and she's talking to you, you are feeling somehow. Like sometimes it could be like hitting on the ground, like you're talking to her, you're trying to convince her, like, look, I'm the best guy around here. And by the time you're done that conversation, you'll have significantly dug a small well for yourself. Based on how you can't do that in public speaking and communication and get away with it. It's not professional. Or you are fidgeting, you are swaying your legs, like that noise you are hearing. Like, sometimes you could be seated and people are hearing that from under the table. Some confident people would actually tell you, please, can you stop that? Wow, some will not even tell you stop that. They'll let you, but already among themselves they've already made the decision, we can't go with this person. Because of you're swaying your legs, you're fidgeting downstairs there, or when you're speaking on the stage, you're swaying your legs like I'm doing right now. You can walk confidently like this. You don't have to. And that creates a significant reservoir for you to posture yourself as a confident communicator. Now, here are the facts. 55% of the meaning in our words is derived from our facial expressions. I would like to take it by assumption, by being in this field, you are all mathematicians. If anything, you are numbers people. Let me put it that way. And 55% is a significant number. If you say our business grew by 55%, or our business declined by 55%, that's a big number. And now, in public speaking and communication, the meaning from the words that you say, 55% of that meaning is derived from the facial expressions. And 38% of the meaning in our words is derived from how the words themselves are said. That leaves us with what? 7%. And only 7% of the meaning in our words is derived from the actual words themselves. So you may choose the right words to say, but say them in the wrong way and express the wrong expression, people will not derive the meaning from what you said. But the words were right. For example, you want to convey your condolences, your friend just lost a partner or something. The words are, I'm really sorry that this happened to you. I pray that the Lord comfort you during this trying moment. Those are nice words. But imagine if you say those words while smiling. Do you think your friend will ever even call you a friend? But the words, the same words, but you say them while smiling. Or you say them, I'm really sorry, man. Yes, I just pray that the Lord, protects you in this trying moment. Yeah, it's okay, man. You'll be fine. The words might have been nice, but they've been said wrongly, and the expressions that accompanied those words was also wrong. And as a result, the person's spirit is dampened even the more, and you lose a friend. And then you say, but I don't understand why. And here is why. So I initially meant to react to a video from the Minister of Energy. Is it Minister of Energy? When I think the early days when we had load shedding, and then the government came to say we are adding more hours. Now there's this minister, I initially meant to react to this video. He was reading, and he was talking about that they were going to increase the hours. But he was smiling. I want to understand that that's like, as a person, he likes to smile, because I saw another press that he gave. He was also smiling when he was talking about the fact that they have reduced the hours. This is funny. For example, if load shedding hours were like at 20 hours, then they've reduced now to like 17. like we're doing a good thing. He was smiling. I was like, they